longer news that the old subsistence and crude method of agriculture which Africa has practiced for so long a time is unsustainable and can't take the continent to the zenith of global food chain. Now, Nigeria, one of Africa's hub for food production, is taking a step further to improving agricultural value chain with the launch of its Agro Processing Zones initiative. This week, our focus is on how far can this go in the quest for the nation's agricultural revolution. I am Charles Alpha, welcoming you to this week's edition of Africa Weekly. The Nigeria Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone is set to take off with both governments and partners committing $538.5 million for the phase one of the program.
Proposal for the Special Agro-Processing Zones has been in paper for the past 9 years when the current president of the African Development Bank, Akiwumi Adesina, was Minister of Agriculture. It moves from paper now to reality, with a commitment from federal, state and development partners to commit resources to the program.
The SAPZ is the flagship for Nigeria's agriculture, which entails the development and operation of agro-industrial processing clusters in areas of high food production across the country.
Nigeria now has a unique opportunity to leverage our strong labor force, strategic location, and production and manufacturing potential to move forward as a key trading partner to the rest of the world.
Major financiers of the program are African Development Bank, International Fund for Agricultural Development, Islamic Development Bank, and the federal government.
The credit facility from the three co-financiers will be on lent to the states by the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning under a subsidiary loan agreement under the same terms and conditions as obtained from the financier.
We are proud that our investment will contribute directly to the incomes of 100,000 small farmers and food producers in Nigeria.
The program is designed to mobilize private sector investment to develop value chains for selected strategic crops and livestock in the participating states.
The first phase, as we've heard, is in 8 locations, the 8 states. And in the next phase, we'll bring on board another 18 states. The SAPZs also stand to benefit from 2 salutary developments. The first is technology and innovation. And there has been an incredible upsurge, as you probably have noticed, in the number of agri-tech startups in Nigeria, all along the entire agricultural value chain.
Governor Ben Ayade, who spoke on behalf of the participating states, advocates a strategy for continuity of the program after this administration.
Nigeria is the leading country in Africa, and if Nigeria is hungry, Africa is hungry. The only way we can stop African hunger is to ensure that every single dollar, every single coin coming out of this project has its manifestation in practical results. The empiricism of that will lead to the food sufficiency that we all seek.
The 7 participating states in the phase one are Kaduna, Kano, Kwara and Oyo. Others are Ogun, Imo and Cross River states and the Federal Capital Territory.
Now, the special advisor to the AFDB president on industrialization, Professor Oyebanji Oyelera, has more to say on this.
What we launched on the October 24 and 25, as you recall, we've talked about this in the past, it's called the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone. It is an idea that had been in the making for many years. It is a model that has been used across several countries. But this particular, in the name of special economic zones or export zones and so forth. But ours is unique in the sense that it is for two reasons. One is that it is devoted to the processing of commodities, agricultural commodities, in which Africa has a huge comparative advantage. 65% of all arable land in the whole world now is in Africa. 34 million hectares of land Nigeria has to cultivate, which much of it remains uncultivated. So it makes perfect sense for us to try to optimize these natural resources that we have. So we started in April 2019 to begin to plan this at the request of President Buhari, that we should build special agro-industrial processing zones in Nigeria. It's been a journey. We went through several levels of preparation, due diligence by each state. Each state identified their top 3-4 commodities. They identified the locations where they want to be. And we had a readiness index by which we were able to select those states that were ready. So right now we have 8 zones, 7 states and FCTA, and 18 states are also lined up now immediately after this stage. So the SAPZ, as we've explained many times, is to actually congregate agro processors, agro dealers, farmers, processors, factory owners within a geographic area in order to optimize certain levels of infrastructure that usually are not outside those zones, like power, like water, even within those farming communities, processes for storage, cold store, logistics, to ensure that farmers get value for their money, to ensure that they suffer the least post-harvest losses, and in the end to raise their living standards. That's at the farmer side, and for the processors also, to ensure that they're able to compete with their global competitors, because right now we are not competitive because of all those infrastructure that are in huge deficit in our country. You see, for example, several things have happened in the last couple of, since 2020. First, we experienced COVID. We had shortages of drugs. Then we continuing challenge of climate change. And then we had a Russian conflict that now intervened. Suddenly, you have a situation of high food inflation. Today, a bag of rice is almost 50,000 naira. Families cannot feed themselves. People are cutting yam into 3 to buy in the market. So, Feed Africa program of the bank had been an answer, and this is what the bank had conceived right from 2015, because this is foreseeable that if Africa doesn't deal with this, we are going to suffer enormous consequences of hunger. You saw the speech by Dr. Akinwumi Adesina the other day. On the global hunger index, Nigeria is about 103. We are far behind in terms of nutrition and food security. We have everything it takes for us to be self-sufficient in food, in nutrition. And so this is why it's extremely important that we deal with not just food security, to ensure that everyone can have a decent life, but also that is a business. Agriculture for us is a business. Much of what we are suffering today in terms of foreign exchange crisis is because we've relied solely on oil. You know, what we export as oil, $34 billion in 2019, a small country like, well, relatively small country like Vietnam, exported food-based products, $40 billion. $40 billion. Netherlands in 2019 exported food worth 95 billion euros, food-based. So the solution for us is in plain sight. The balance of payment crisis that we're having is because we buy things in dollars, but we don't earn dollars. the reliance on oil has been a big, big problem for our country because it's easy money, it's short term, and the danger of over-dependence on oil is actually a pathology. It translates into a situation where, and as you look at oil, it's an enclave. Only a few people benefit. So I've written a book recently on that, but for us today, the focus is using the special agro-industrial processing zone to solve this problem, to create an alternative, a diversified economy. What Nigeria needs is a diversified economy, and to do that in a way that is sustainable. I'll give you an example. Over the last, since between 1980 and now, 2022, that's almost 40-something years, people always say Nigeria's agricultural contribution to GDP is 20%. Now, when we calculate this out of 23%, and it's flat, how can you have a country have contribution to GDP of a particular sector remain constant for 40 years? That is a sign of stagnation. What we should be having is that right now, agricultural contribution to GDP should have gone lower. And then why? Because the products from agriculture should be modernized, and then they transmit or transition into the industrial sector. This is what other countries have done. Vietnam, at that same time, their contribution to GDP was 40%. Today it's 12%. Malaysia, 7%. In South Korea, it's 2.5%. What do you see the pattern of those countries? These are countries that are way richer than us. The total export of Vietnam in 2019 was $380 billion. Nigeria's export is 10% of that. Why? Because where you make money is when you add value to your natural resources. You process them. You get more money. Before I round up this session, let me tell you something. For example, if you take cocoa, a ton of cocoa beans will fetch you to maybe $2,000. When you process it into cocoa powder or intermediate products, it fetches you about $7,000. A ton of chocolate is $15,000. So what does that tell you? The way to make money and grow wealthy for any country is manufacturing. It's industrial process. That's why I said we shouldn't have the low productivity side of agriculture being the dominant part, saying, oh, 20% contribution. What we have witnessed is actually a regression in that sector. This is what Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone is coming to do, to provide the ecosystem for factories to process, to add value, and for us to not just guarantee our food security, but also to export.
Bilateral trade among African countries is on the increase. One of such latest moves is the collaboration between Nigeria and Gambia, who are working out modalities to increase trade and business opportunities for the respective citizens.
Nigeria can produce what we need in the continent, and we are ready to learn from you.
Desirous to make the Gambian business environment competitive for improved domestic production and export performance, the First Lady of the Gambia, Fatoumata Bah Barrow, is inviting Nigeria to aid Gambia in diversifying its economy and strengthening non-oil export. She emphasized that Nigeria is pivotal to positioning the Gambia for global market inclusion.
Bring in a Chamber of Commerce, Nigerian Chamber of Commerce, if we want this relationship to continue. That's the way forward.
Minister of Tourism and Culture of the Gambia, Hamad Bah, equally advocated the need for Nigeria to support the Gambia tourism sector.
What the Gambia wants is to partner with Nigeria, move us from low-income economy to a middle-income economy. You can do this in 10 years.
The Executive Director of Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Ezra Yakusak, assured the Gambia of Nigerians' readiness to work with the country and also build the capacity of MSMEs for exports.
One of the messages I'm taking back home is the need for Nigerians to invest in Gambia, because I know by the time we start coming here, we are going to facilitate and encourage trade, and we are going to synergize our relationship as brothers and sisters.
Like other African countries, the Gambian government is strategizing to implement enhanced trade policies that will develop trade, generate revenues, and increase investment opportunities.
We now take an excerpt from the interview with the Nigerian High Commissioner to the Gambia, Ambassador Mohamed Manu, whose office played a vital role in the recently held Nigeria-Gambia trade exhibition in Banjul.
Diplomatic relation between Nigeria and the Gambia can best be described as an excellent relationship. It is a relationship that has been in existence since or before the independence of the country in 1960. Enhancing relationship or trade relation between our countries can never be overemphasized. So the role the NEPC and the SMEDAN has played is a patriotic role that Nigeria needs more so at this time. You know, we know over the time our leaders within the ECOWAS region and in Africa as a whole have been making efforts to stimulate or enhance trade relations within our countries. So I think this can best be done by providing information to the producers, our local producers, on the available markets within the continent. I think success achieved by the current administration of Nigeria, I think it is in the area of agriculture. What I see in terms of rice production, I often describe it as a kind of revolution for the country. I wonder what will how our country will have been under the COVID if we don't have local rice production. So sincerely, Gambia has the same potentials. If you look at the Gambia, you look at the River Gambia coming from the ocean to the end of the country, and on both sides of the river, certainly rice can be grown. Many other products can also be grown. So I think there are a lot of potentials that not only importing rice from Nigeria, Nigerian businessmen or those producing rice in Nigeria can also come here and invest. It depends on the economic assessment. Is this more important for us to buy rice from Nigeria and bring it here, or will it be better and cheaper if we invest here and produce here?
And now, Nigeria and other member states of the Lake Chad Basin may have seen the worst of the unrest in the basin, with social, economic, and political stability returning to the region. A 15-year-old strategic action plan for sustainable development is now undergoing final validation of experts in Abuja.
Lake Chad, once oasis in the deserts shared by its riparian countries, is a story reminiscent of opportunity lost. The lake, losing over 90% of its original size, turned a basis for social unrest in the basin. Farming and fishing were lost to droughts, while the idle hands became tools in the negative venture of insurgency.
Indeed, the Lake Chad Basin represents one of the most threatened ecosystems in Africa, combining hydroclimatic, socio-economic, and political challenges.
Huge as they were, the challenges necessitated national and multinational efforts, now turning in results.
We took the battle into the Lake Chad Islands, where we really tackled the insurgents, and most of them have dispersed. But they are still there. Once in a while, they are in a position to attack, looking for supplies. That one we'll have to contend with for quite some time. But generally, the situation has tremendously improved in the northeast.
Even while effort is still on the transfer of water, a solution identified for the disappearing lake, the nature may be smiling already at the almost lost oasis in the desert.
But thank God the lake is picking up, the water is coming back gradually. Now we are about between 10,000 and 12,000 square kilometers, depending on the rainy season.
Beyond that, what promises to be permanent solutions have been outlined in the Strategic Action Plan for the Lake Chad Basin, which is up to these experts here to review and approve for implementation.
The Ugandan High Commissioner to Nigeria, Nelson Ochega, has called on Nigerians to take advantage of the privilege being provided and invest in his country. The High Commissioner was speaking in a get-together marking the Ugandan 60th Independence Day, and there he announced that soon the Ugandan Airlines will be flying to Nigeria, and it has been granted permits at Lagos, Abuja, and Kano airports. The High Commissioner said that will further boost and strengthen the economic relationship between Nigeria and Uganda.
We have had investments in the areas of banking, insurance, oil and gas, and we have also had technical cooperation in the area of education. Because of our good relations, there has been a trade between our countries, albeit at a very low level. The last information that I have indicates that our annual trade in terms of exports from Nigeria to Uganda do not exceed $10 million US. And the same applies to what we bring from Uganda to Nigeria.
Okay, that's our package this week on Africa Weekly. Many thanks for being part of it. I am Charles Alpha. Thanks for watching.